Hello there. My name is Paul Campbell, and I'm going to continue to read You Know Something is Wrong When, an American Affidavit of Probable Cause. Today we will be going over Part 8, The Great Fraud. After the First World War ended, the Congress and various presidents kept declaring states of emergency and states of war as a jurisdiction for retaining control of all the assets that rightfully belong to the American state and the American state citizens. That explains how and why all our assets were in the possession of the United States of America, Incorporated, when it declared bankruptcy in 1933. 1933, the Great Fraud, in which billions of people died, suffered, went hungry, and lost everything they had for bank profits. Coming out of World War One, the government money machine was still running full tilt, and the bankers saw no reason to stop it. They let the money flow like water in the streets, and the roaring twenties and massive leveraged investment speculation was the result. The roaring twenties. Like building a house of cards, the bankers let the markets build, while the innocent sought out riskier and riskier investments in the grossly overvalued stock market. And the greedy, but also innocent, ones among us used highly leveraged options to trade at all, hoping to make a fortune overnight. And then, in late October of 1929, the Federal Reserve abruptly choked out the money supply. As a direct result, they were able to put thousands of competitors out of business, buy up massive amounts of real estate for pennies, and hire labor for almost nothing. It was banker paradise. The Conference of Governors, March 6, 1933. The United States of America Incorporated had 48 federal state franchises, run under names styled like this: State of Wisconsin or State of Ohio. These were identical to local franchises operated by any other national corporation. Think of McDonald's or Wendy's or Burger King, and you will have the picture. FDR. FDR was President of the United States of America Incorporated, and the governors of these states were all franchise managers. On March 6, 1933, Roosevelt told them all that the United States of America Incorporated was bankrupt. The governors are immediately pledged. That word again. The good faith and credits of their states and the citizenry thereof. Obviously, they could not pledge the good faith or the credit of living American state citizens, nor of their organic states either. And they didn't. They pledged the resources of their states, the federal state franchises and their citizens, the United States citizens who opened to be residing on the land of the organic states. That did not prevent them from making full use of their semantic deceit and laying false claims and titles under color of law against the land and private property of American states and American state citizens. By 1940, the Congress figured out a way of redefining American state citizens as United States corporations, that is, as property belonging to the Congress. Remember? Back in 1871, the corporate Congress claimed to own all United States corporations and their assets by redefining you and your assets as a corporation. They could enslave you, literally own you, and you still avoid the prohibitions against slavery because there is no law that forbids enslavement of corporations. Senate Document 43, 73rd Congress, First Session states the ownership, trusteeship of all property is in the state which state individual so called ownership is only by virtue of government, i.e., law amounting to mere user, and use must be in accordance with law and subordinate to the necessities of the state. Communism, they steal everything and pay for everything. Fascism, they steal everything and make you pay for everything too. Thumbkins versus Erie Railroad. The rats have avoided the requirements of the Constitution for the United States of America by falsely claiming that Americans chose to be United States citizens and that we entered into private contracts allowing these mostly foreign-owned commercial corporations to enslave us and plunder our estates in equitable exchange for benefits like Social Security, all of which were deceitfully imposed on us as government mandates, complete with the taxes needed to pay for them. Here's what they did with the courts. Flesh and blood Americans living on the land of the American states are owed common law courts under the Constitution for the United States of America, Article 7. Only common law is competent to decide issues involving living people and their private property. But in 1938, the United States Supreme Court, which is supreme only over the federal corporation, not the people, decided Thumbkins v. Erie Railroad and admitted that there is no general federal common law. Our common law courts today exist only on paper, purposely left unfunded and without paid staff. The American people have not had access to the courts and law forms they are owed for decades. Our state courthouses are filled with foreign courts operating exclusively in international jurisdictions. We've been kidnapped into these foreign jurisdictions and subjected to statutory law, which, as the name implies, is law for entities created by statutes, like testamentary trust. John Quincy Adams, like transmitting utilities, George F. Schnadelmeyer. The mortgage fraud, 1934 to present. 1. Section 103 of the Depository Institutions, Deregulation, and Monetary Control Act of 1980, Public Law 96, 6 through 221, admits that in the United States, neither paper currency nor deposits have value as commodities. Intrinsically, a dollar bill is a piece of paper, and deposits are merely book entries. Generally accepted accounting procedure defines all such deposits as bank liabilities. However, the bank pro- probably never pays these liabilities. So the bank never actually loans anything of equitable value and contributes nothing but a minor accounting service when they set up a mortgage. 4. Additionally, FDIC rules prevent banks from loaning their own assets or the assets of their depositors, proving again that the banks do not and cannot provide value for value and have no valid security interest. 5. The lender in any loan transaction in the United States never lends anything or of reasonably equal value to the borrower, uh, and any contract formed is defective for false advertising, semantic deceit, non-disclosure, and lack of equitable consideration. 6. See First National Bank of Montgomery v. Jerome Daly, 1968, Credit River decision, where attorney Jerome Daly proved the fraud. Daly based his defense on the argument that the bank had not actually loaned him any money, but had simply created credit on his books. Daly argued that the bank had thus not given him anything of value and was not entitled to the property that secured the loan. The jury and the justice of the peace in Martin v. Mahoney agreed. The jury returned a verdict for the defendant, and the justice of the peace declared that the mortgage was null and void, and that the bank was not entitled to possession of the property securing the mortgage. The justice admitting in his order that his decision might run counter to provisions in the Minnesota Constitution and some Minnesota statutes, but contended that such provisions were repugnant to the Constitution of the United States and the Minnesota Bill of Rights. Mr. Banker, let me loan you your own assets. Give me a security interest for free, and pay me 5 times what the property is worth. And then the state of Minnesota will own your property free and clear. You can burn their mortgage for them. Hypothecation, a process by which one party uses another party's assets to secure a loan via establishment of an unseen lien, which does not require transfer of the actual property title and which is not detected as long as the first party makes their payments. The government, that is the Governor Services Corporation, have hypothecated debt against your private property assets, and because they claim to represent you, they have obligated you to pay their debts for them when they go bankrupt and default. That is what FDR did when he bankrupted the United States of America Incorporated. And that is what the IMF, International Monetary Fund, will try to do when they bankrupt the United States Incorporated. The biggest lie of all is that politicians have the authority to indebt future generations of Americans. Oh, well, I can't pay today, but surety Joe Q. Puppet's great grandson will stand good for me. This is the reason that Americans are born in debt, live in debt, and die in debt. It's called gross fiduciary trust fraud and is being committed against you by people on your own payroll. What are civil rights? Black Americans were never really freed after the Civil War. They were given a new, specially created citizenship, United States citizenship, and civil rights granted by the Congress, not the natural and unalienable rights guaranteed to American state citizens. The United States, Inc. laid claim to them and their estates as unclaimed chattel and hypothecated United States government debt against their labor and possessions and the international jurisdiction of the sea. Here's what the corporate constitution actually says. Section 1. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Section 2. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. All they did was redefine criminals as slaves. They did nothing to abolish slavery itself. In fact, they enshrined slavery as a permanent part of their national law and gave themselves the right to arbitrarily redefine both crimes and criminals, such that a child picking dandelions could be arrested as a criminal and enslaved for life. It's time for the United States Congress to be brought home and overhauled, for members to be deputized as true judiciary officers, and for senators to be held accountable to the state of the land again. When African Americans demand equal rights, didn't anyone wonder equal to what? They were demanding rights equal to those enjoyed by American state citizens, so the Congress granted them while retaining the ability to cancel any rights at all, at any time. Re-enslaving Black Americans proved to be so profitable that Congress sat up many nights trying to figure out how they could pull the same deal on white folks, and circa 1940, they came up with a scheme to do just that. I already own all the Black folks in America. There must be some way to lay claim to the rest. Seven steps to enslavement. Step 1. Make laws requiring all the corporate federal state franchises to register live births. Step 2. Seize upon the given names of all the babies of American state citizens as well as United States citizens, and create new legal fiction entities operated under the same name. Step 3. Charge off all kinds of private corporate debt as public debt hypothecated against Joseph Jacob Lew. Establish commercial liens against him and his assets. Then claim that he has gone missing, presumed lost at sea, presumed dead. Step 4. Roll over all the assets of Joseph Jacob Lew into an estate. Trust, also named after the original living American, only styled as Joseph Jacob Lew, a trust created under Washington, D.C. Municipal Statute 2, Vital Statistics, Section 7 through 201, Paragraph 10, owned and operated by the United States Incorporated. This is all done to enable the perpetrators to plunder his estate, which is by definition a corporation, an estate, trust, and therefore in the control and the jurisdiction of the sea. Step 5. Everyone involved in the fraud pretends that the living American state citizen is dead and that his assets belong to the Government Services Corporation. Step 6. Run this fraud for decades, then start over again. Redefine the individual estate trust as transmitting utilities created under United Nations laws and name these new corporate entities after living Americans using only middle initials as identifiers. Joseph J. Lew. Step 7. Bar Association members bring charges against all these legal fiction entities as if they were the living man or woman, a crime known as personage. Notice, all the charges are addressed to a legal fiction person, operated under your given name, and are never actually addressed to you at all. This is how Americans born on the land of the American states have been systematically reduced to living as United States citizens, redefined as corporations, subject to statutory laws, defrauded of their property, and kidnapped into the foreign jurisdiction of the sea. We are attacked as babies in our cradles long before we are able to defend ourselves by evil and self-interested men who direct ignorant people to commit evil in our names. This step-by-step process begins within hours of birth. Notice the name game. John Quincy Adams is the living man living in the Massachusetts state. John Quincy Adams is a defunct foreign scientist trust residing in the equally defunct state of Massachusetts. John Quincy Adams is a temporary testamentary trust formed by the Washington, D.C. municipal government, born in the state of Massachusetts, but removed to Puerto Rico, where it falls under the laws of the United States of America, minor. John Q. Adams is a new transmitting utility owned and operated by the new Federal Reserve, organized under the auspices of the United Nations. John Q. Adams is a state-level transmitting utility operated by the Federal Reserve, doing business as the United States of America Incorporated, doing business as Massachusetts. Your given name is your private property. When someone gives you something, as in gives you a bicycle for your 10th birthday, it belongs to you. It's yours, whether or not you paid for it, whether or not you like it, whether or not it's your favorite color. It is the same way with your given name. The name Anna Maria Wilhelmina Hannah Sophia is not exactly what a little girl might choose, and Gottlieb Clotilde Gertrude Margos Edith is arguably worse. But these gifts, like the orange and purple knit potholders lovingly crafted by your great aunt Zelda, are gifts of love. They are given to us by our parents, and traditionally, they are meant to be a bequest, a memorial recitation of the blessing and the wishes of parents for each one of us. Each name is, in fact, a description when properly understood. Anna was meant to be a foundation stone of wisdom and practical motherly love for her family and her world. Gottlieb was to be an instrument of God's love and grace, expressed with courage and determination and faithfulness. Even if our parents had died before we could remember them, the names they gave us and the descriptions they provide would tell us about the essence of the man or woman our parents wished us to be. Though most contemporary names are typically much shorter and simpler, they nonetheless provide descriptive information and express the gift of a parent to their child. Nothing could be more intimate or sacred. A large share of the abuse that the banks and the governmental services companies have promoted has been the theft of our given names and the pretension that our mothers knowingly names their corporation the trustee of our estates and allowed these same entities to issue bonds based on the value of our estates. That is, to enslave and indebt us. They have even claimed to own our given names via registration. But in fact, our mothers had already given our names to us, and absent that gift, the names would not exist. It wasn't available to give to any corporation. It was already yours. This outrageous identity theft scheme is a fiduciary trust fraud that has been operated against innocent Americans by privately owned and operated banking cartels and governmental services corporations trading upon the Constitution for the United States of America. Americans have literally been enslaved and their assets have been plundered and falsely indebted by charlatans, merely claiming to represent them and pretending to occupy elected public offices, while in fact occupying similarly named private corporate offices instead. The United States Army has allowed this to go on, even though it is obligated by commercial contracts, the Geneva Conventions, the Lieber Code, and the Hague Conventions to protect American state citizens and the private property assets, and is required under law of war and law of nations to return all conscripted civilian property to the rightful owners unharmed and free of debt or encumbrance. We have shown you how these corporations misrepresent and prey upon your estates and plunder the individual public trust they create and operate in your name. There is also a scam at the national level. That was part 8 of You Know Something Is Wrong When, an American Affidavit of Probable Cause. Next time we will be going over part 9, the aftermath.